Welcome back to the Motorcyclist podcast. This is where we talk about motorcycles and what makes them great. As always, topics on the show are constantly changing, but the one thing that remains is motorcycling fun. In this episode, we're going to talk about motorcycle travel, the good, the bad, the ugly, plus some of our favorite stories that we've had in our times riding motorcycles for quite a while. And then we're going to talk about how to set yourself up for a successful trip. So before we get started, we got to make some introductions. We've got editor Adam Wahid, in-market editor Bradley Adams, and myself, executive editor Justin Dawes. What's up, guys?
What's up, man? Good morning.
Good morning.
Cold morning here in SoCal.
Oh yeah, chilly, so cold. You just upset like half of the United States, if not half the world. So
did you wear your shorts on your motorcycle this morning, Bradley?
Yeah. Oh, I had to put on actual shoes instead of flip flops. So anyway, we always talk about what we're riding before we get started on our subject. So let's start off with what everyone's been riding. Adam, what have you been riding?
Oh, I've been riding Honda's trusty CRF 450 RX enduro bike, and wow, I love that thing.
Bradley, so the RX is like a does it have a headlight, or is it like a cross country race bike?
Yeah, it's cross country enduro competition bike. So, 18-inch rear wheel, no headlight, a little bit softer suspension, designed for open desert racing and that kind of stuff. So a little bit more mellow than based on the CRF 450R, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
And you did more than just ride it, right?
I've been riding this thing. I mean, we did the Day in the Dirt Grand Prix this past weekend, and this summer, I've ridden that bike all over. I've done single track on it. I've done, desert. I've done, everything. And that's why I love that bike. Maybe it's not the very best at anything, but it literally does everything very capably. If I had to buy a dirt bike, that would be the dirt bike I'd buy.
So fill everyone in on what Day in the Dirt is. Just a quick synopsis, because it's a pretty rad event.
Yeah, it's just this big event that takes place every Thanksgiving weekend in Southern California. It's kind of like, basically it's if Burning Man people rode dirt bikes. That's what Day in the Dirt would be. So you basically go to this racetrack, Glen Helen Raceway, you camp, you hang out with your friends, you barbecue, and then you race and ride your dirt bikes during the day on this crazy epic course that meanders through, the mountains of San Bernardino. It's really fun, and it's a really unique event, real family friendly, and it's just all about having fun. And the 450 RX shines there.
Nice. So it started as like a thing with like stuntmen, movie industry people, along with moto people, right? Like it was kind of like a meeting place for that.
Yeah, totally. Like back in the day, I think more stunt people rode and raced motorcycles back in the day. So they wanted, a fun thing to do on the weekend during Thanksgiving. So that's kind of how that event was born, I think 26 or 27 years ago. Things have changed a little bit. And I think the Hollywood stunt community is a little bit less into dirt biking. I know probably some stuntmen out there are gonna be like, what are you talking about? But generally a little bit less, but still a fun event, still real grassroots feeling wise, kind of a nod to the bygone era of Steve McQueen and Mert Lawwell and Eddie Mulder. And it's really cool and fun, it's all about just having fun on your dirt bike.
Right on.
Cool. That's cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. What about you, Bradley?
Man, I've just been commuting. Honestly, I haven't been doing any of the fun stuff like Adam, but riding the MT-09 SP right now, and it's been interesting to ride that thing. It's just like, I don't know. Anytime you get on a Yamaha with that CP3 engine, it's just like you immediately fall in love again. And I was riding it in this morning actually, and like the thing that stands out to me on that bike is just the sounds it makes. Like the exhaust note, they've got those like acoustic grills on the tank, and and then like it's got the auto blip downshifter, and every time you downshift, it has that little pop to it, and it's just so good. The only thing I will say about that bike is we always talk about like naked bikes and going to the track, and I know you talk about that, Justin, but I did ride that bike on the track last week. I don't love it as a track bike. I still fight naked bikes on the track just because like the handlebars, they always give me like a little bit of arm pump for some reason, like the one piece handlebar. Just like, I don't know.
Oh
I don't
man,
love it as
that's
much on a track as I thought I would. But yeah, I don't know. That's obviously because I'm just a track guy. I like sport bikes.
I
But
was gonna
as like a
say
street bike, that MTO9 SPs, it is a good street bike. Really
yeah,
good
I was
street.
gonna say like as Big Lebowski would say, well man, that's like your opinion, man.
Totally fair.
No,
Fold me up on a sport bike all day, man. I'm
yeah, I
happy.
mean, that's what you grew up doing too, right? You grew up racing sport bikes, and your dad is, Curtis Adams, like a legend of the SoCal street bike racing world, if not, the nation. And so, of course, you like sport bikes. Me, I hate being folded up for that long, even if they're purpose built and they do everything better on a track. I just want to be comfortable and just spin some fast laps and enjoy myself. I'm not going for
Yeah.
the fast lap
Yeah,
time.
yeah, no, that's fair.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of where's your mentality at when you get on the bike.
mhm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
as a street bike though, that '09 SP, and then for the price
Oh, yeah.
jump over a standard '09, like that thing is it does feel pretty premium and special. So yeah, I've been enjoying that thing for sure.
Awesome.
What about
Right
you,
on.
man? Did you actually get to ride recently, or
Yeah. I've been riding a CRF 300L rally.
yeah?
Kind of not for a magazine test or anything. My neighbor, he just bought one a little while ago. He's never ridden a motorcycle before. I took him dirt bike riding a couple times here and got him on like a CRF 125 just to like see if he liked it, and he fell in love. He's 65 years old. He's a retired theoretical astrophysicist. Like he is like his brain is massive. Like he worked on like finding like these weird little particles called WIMPs, weak interactive something particles,
I want to meet this
molecular
guy.
particles. Yeah. So he and his wife was always like, no motorcycles, and then they met me and we became friends. And so anyway, I took him riding, and he wants to do motorcycle travel. So I helped him pick out a bike, CRF 300L rally. It's got the bigger windscreen. It's got more room. It looks like a rally bike. It's cool looking. And then we set it up for travel. So he's a tall guy. So we changed the bars. We did a bunch of stuff. And then so I just took it for like a good shakedown ride to make sure that we had everything dialed in and it's all good. And now he's ready to go. But man, I really like that bike, like the seating position and the comfort of that bike. Like, I don't know why anyone would just buy the regular L. I mean, even if you're going dirt bike riding, it's basically the same bike, but with better wind protection. So
you
just
can
get
do
the
more,
L.
just added versatility. We always go back to that, right? Just versatility.
Yeah. And I am a adventure bike advocate too. So, and I think it's one of the coolest little adventure bikes you can get. So it's not particularly fast, man. It is, it is pretty sluggish, but other than that, it's pretty good, man. It's pretty good. So
speaking of travel,
yeah,
that's a good segue. Did you do that on purpose?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't even think of it.
Yeah, we're talking travel today, huh?
We are.
The joys and the not so fun parts of travel.
Yep.
I'm gonna start with the stuff we like. How about that?
Let's do that. Yeah, because that's the fun part of it.
Yeah, the fun part, the good parts of motorcycle travel, and there are a lot. It's funny because I don't know. We were talking about this before and making notes, and it's funny because the things that we love about riding a motorcycle long distance and traveling on one, I think are some of the things we love about riding a motorcycle in general. It's just now for a longer period of time, which is the fact that you're so immersed in your environment. Oh, yeah. Right. You're experiencing everything, all the sights, the smells, the wind, the debris, everything, right, is so much more vivid.
Yeah.
And
it ramps so much everything better. Up. It ramps everything up in terms of your experience of seeing a place. You're seeing it while you're moving, but you're you're so much more immersed in it than you are in a car.
Right.
You
Not
know,
shielded by by a car, and you have your air conditioning running and your radio going and your snacks and your soda and all that, right? It's
yeah,
and again, we love that. That's one of the reasons why I love riding a motorcycle. And now to get to experience traveling on a motorcycle is to experience more of that, and more locations and new locations. I think your trip is everything is amplified. Like I said,
absolutely.
when you're on a
And
motorcycle, that's
there's
the beauty of it.
there's a factor of this feeling of adventuring, of doing something that a lot of people don't necessarily do. And it's like you're blazing a trail, even though you may be doing the same trip that 1,000 or 10,000 or a million people have done. When you're doing it, it feels like you're the one that's doing it, and you're putting your stamp on something pretty amazing,
Yeah.
you know?
It's always amazing to me. I feel like when I'm traveling, I could be doing the same section of road. And if I'm on a motorcycle, I feel like I notice so much more. I see more things because on a motorcycle, if you're riding a motorcycle correctly, in my opinion, you're always looking out for things, right? You're being more observant than you are in a car. And I think when you're now experiencing new areas, you're traveling on a motorcycle, you're always looking around and you're seeing things that you just don't in a car, right? You're
Mhm.
getting to experience all these places and you're noticing so much more, it feels like to me. And I think that's a big part of traveling is getting to see things that you haven't before. And
Yep, absolutely. It,
um
it's also a pared down traveling experience. Like you're minimizing the things that you can take. You're held to a certain size footprint, right, on your motorcycle, depending on what type of bike that is. And that's one of the fun parts too, is to really simplify but think carefully about what you're bringing.
yeah. Yeah, it's just to the essentials. And that another joy of motorcycling is it's everything is pared down, right? To in the simplest form. It's sure, it might be great to be traveling in a truck, big sedan. You just start throwing stuff in the trunk, but then next thing you know, you've got, you know, 20 outfits when you need five or something like that. Like, oh, I'll just throw this in and I'll bring this. And all of a sudden you're just overwhelmed by all this stuff you've got with you. And on a motorcycle, you don't have that.
Yeah.
And in so many ways, I think it creates so much simplicity, and it's just you, the motorcycle, and the couple of things that you're bringing
Hmm.
with you, right?
Yeah.
And
And
there is
and
something to that.
you get to refine and evolve how you travel, in terms of, like, if you do a bunch of motorcycle travel. So like I have a shelf that's got everything in my garage that has everything I need for motorcycle travel. My super small sleeping bag, my little pillow, my jet boil, my camping chair, my all these things, so that like I can fit it all in like one you know one small sack or in two saddlebags, and I've got everything I need. And I've honed that over 15-20 years
Yeah,
of riding motorcycles.
there's such a beauty in that, in simplicity. We live in a world now where we live in abundance
Hmm.
and overcomplicated things, and we overcomplicate things as humans, right? So
Oh yeah.
when you don't have that luxury of space,
Yeah, it's
there's a
pretty
beauty
rad.
in the simplicity and the essentials. Yeah.
What about you, Adam? You have like a kit for traveling, or do you just wing it?
Yeah, I mean it's funny you said that because yeah, I have my certain things, that I like to bring with me, that I've pared down over the years. And it's funny when you start traveling by motorcycle, quite often you know exactly what to bring and exactly what not to bring. So yeah, I have like a little setup that I usually bring. And like Bradley said, it's actually fun to pare everything down and just bring one cell phone charger, one thing, like not
How
two
do
things,
wait?
one.
How do you bring one cell phone charger when you have like six cell phones?
I meant
Like
I
Adam
meant
I
has
cell
love
more
phone.
that that was a
phones.
thing. Yeah, I love that that was a
Adam
thing. Yeah.
has more phones than any person I've ever met in my life. Like he'll have two open at the same time sometimes. So
I meant cell phone charging cable. Sorry, cell
okay,
phone
okay.
charging cable. So yeah, it's
Awesome.
just cool, just cool, And then when you're traveling on motorcycle too, it's cool having to do anticipate the weather. What's the weather gonna bring? What's the weather gonna be? Do I need to bring a pair of tennis shoes that have vents in them? Do I need ones that are, have Gore-Tex so my feet don't get cold? It's fun to kind of get ready for the different place you're going. And yeah, it's just a cool experience. I love traveling by motorcycle.
I think you mentioned it earlier, Justin. I think that other thing too is that sense of exploration. I think that's one of the beauties of motorcycle travel for me. My kind of thing is, if ever I see a road that piques my interest, whether it's a dirt road, whether I see a little canyon road off the side of the freeway, or whether I'm looking at a map at lunch and I'm like, where does that go? On a motorcycle, I'm going to go check it out. Whereas if you're traveling in a car, there's always that concern of, wow, this might get a little bit rough and the car might not, the car might struggle, or I might get back there and I might not be able to turn around, or if I'm going, a small little town or something, there might not be parking, all those things like that. And I think it kind of limits you in some ways. A car does. Where on a motorcycle, there's just so much freedom to it. You're like, oh, I'll just zip up there real quick,
Yeah,
and
sure.
obviously, of course, if you're on an adventure bike or something like that, there's just almost nothing holding you back in terms of where you're going. It's like, yeah, I'll just venture down this dirt road a little bit, or I'll go up that mountain pass real quick, and you see so much more, in my opinion, than you're ever going to see in a car, unless you're super adventurous, or you got a pretty cool rig, but that's something different. I think,
Yeah.
generally speaking, generalized travel, people, in a Toyota Camry or something like that, you're just not seeing what you're going to see in a motorcycle. So those are the things for me. I think it's being immersed in the environment and getting to that kind of heightened experience of everything that you're seeing and riding through, and then that added sense of exploration and adventure. And I think you're seeing so much more on a motorcycle than you are in a car when you're traveling. That for me is the two highlights of motorcycle travel.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
There's a lot of good things about riding a motorcycle and traveling, but let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges. Obviously, when you're riding, you're generally using a lot of brain power, just searching the road, making sure there's nothing around you, and it can be a more physically taxing thing. You drive your automobile, you plug in the GPS, and you're there 4 hours later. On a bike, it's much more active.
Yeah, it is. It is mentally demanding, and it's also physically demanding, right? Because you're dealing with weather, so it could be really cold, it could be really hot. You're dealing with being sitting on a motorcycle, right? So you don't have this big cushy seat of a car to kind of move yourself around on. You're more placed. I mean, you can move around on your seat, and you have some options, but it's not quite the same, right? Your legs are a little bit in a more crouched type position. You've got your arms up higher. You're doing stuff the whole time, and so that that does definitely wear you out more than in a car.
Wind blast. Nothing worse than getting stuck in a windstorm and you're like constantly trying to, manage body position and weight balance a little bit like that. But yeah, no, you're right, Adam, for sure. There are sacrifices that come with it, for sure. I think we all willingly accept those. There are worse days, the days where it's freezing cold or exceptionally windy, and you're just like, those are brutal days on a motorcycle. I think we've all experienced those.
We've all definitely had days where, where you've been freezing or whatever, and you're like, man, am I really, why am I doing this? Like, I know I've had days on a bike traveling, and I've just gone like, this is so dumb. Why did I choose to do this this weekend or today?
I'm an idiot.
I should have drove. I could have I could have put my bike in the van and then got there and unloaded it and done some stuff.
We would have judged you.
So as much as we are proponents of you should get out and travel on your motorcycle, we do recognize sometimes it does suck, right?
I got two other downsides. Other downsides. They're small. You get through them. But the one is, if you're not on the right bike, the fuel stops. Man.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's just no way to get around it, right? Unless you're on, I was going to say a Goldwing, but even now the Goldwing with the smaller tank, you're still stopping relatively frequently. It seems compared to a car, for sure. But,
for sure.
yeah, it seems like you're at a gas stop a lot, at a gas station a lot.
Well, and with those fuel stops comes a longer travel time. Like that's one thing
Yeah.
that you really learn in motorcycle traveling is that in a car, it's like point A to point B. You could eat in the car. You can stop real quick, get gas. You don't have to stop as often. Like, you get there quicker. Where, the same journey on a bike, if it's we'll just say a 400-mile ride, it's going to take you 2 to 3 hours longer sometimes, just because you're getting off the bike and you're stretching when you're getting gas, and you're going to go get something to drink, and you might get something to eat, and you have to do all those things. So you definitely, it's more time intensive. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully always makes for a better story and more experiences, right? Because those are the ones, like, rather than getting off and like pulling into a fast food restaurant or something and eating on the road, you're like, oh, there's this like little mom and pop cafe right over here, I'm gonna go do that, right? So yeah, it's yeah, you are right though. The time, you think, we always think motorcycles are a little bit of a cheat code in terms of getting somewhere quicker and things like that, and it's not necessarily true when you're traveling on a motorcycle.
Very
Yeah.
true. Yep.
The only other thing that gets me there is wildlife, deer, all these things that, especially you're somewhere that you don't know, unfamiliar roads, motorcycle travel. We've all done it. You're late at night, early in the morning, all these things. And you got to be careful. You definitely got to be mindful of that stuff.
Yeah, very much so. I actually, we're going to talk about some stories here, and I'm actually probably going to kick it off, but I have 2 stories, and both of them include, one includes wildlife and one includes just the elements causing some lapse in concentration. So let's start off with traveling stories and my good traveling stories. Let's talk about the good first, just like we did. Let's tell some bad stories.
Always positive
right?
note. Yeah.
But when you're talking about wildlife, on this travel I did, I almost clobbered a deer at 75 miles an hour in the dirt. I mean, he jumped, or it was a doe. She jumped out in front of me out of some bushes. I never saw the deer. And the next thing I knew, like, it went by in front of me like a flash, and I never even hit the brakes. Like, that's how close it was. And but the trip itself was epic, and that was only one little hiccup, and was probably my favorite trip ever, which was I rode KTM adventure bikes, 1190 Adventure R's in like 2016 maybe, from Deadwood, South Dakota to Temecula, California, with Lel Pavey from Brake Magazine. He's a editor in the UK for adventure bike stuff. Lel does rad stuff. If you're not subscribed to Brake, he's probably one of the only ones that I will recommend. You need to subscribe to Brake. He's rad. He's doing some really cool stuff on adventure bikes. But anyway, Lel and I decided we were going to ride 2,400 miles or so, and we were going to try to stay off the street as much as possible. So we went
all, like, much dirt, just riding dirt roads, gravel
roads, even some, full on desert trails and stuff. So it was 2,400 miles. We went less than 500 miles on the street in 6 days. We started off, we went through Wyoming, which was all right. It was a lot of farmland and dirt roads. We were doing like 115 miles an hour on these like dirt roads where you could see forever. If a deer came out there, I guess it would have been all over, but super rad to just like open it up and pin it. We camped along the way, so we each had one small bag on the tail. We didn't have saddlebags, just like a duffel, waterproof duffel setup, and a backpack. We stopped in Colorado for a night, and then we went through Moab, Utah, and we rode like Slick Rock and rode some of the trails, which was super rad. And then we made our way through Zion, and then eventually, across the desert into Southern California. And the amount of fun that we had on that trip, man, I just can't even describe how good it was. Like, just camping every night. So we would be riding, and we were riding at like a good pace. Like, we weren't just like like we were like pinning it through the desert, but anytime we saw something really cool, we would stop, we'd take photos, do some video. When we get to our spot, unpack all our stuff, camp out, we had like little tiny 1-person tents, and it was just like there were days where we didn't see hardly anybody. Like it was like we had the Western United States to ourselves, and that was really, really fun on that.
That's a perfect example again. Not to repeat myself, but like of an experience you just don't really have in a car.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing that. You're definitely not doing, that many miles on dirt,
No,
I mean,
definitely
not in
not. You're not
today's
covering
world, at
that.
least,
No. Yeah.
It's just, you really can only experience that on motorcycle, and that's the cool thing about motorcycle and motorcycle travel. It just opens up so much of the world and puts it at your fingertips. Right?
Yep.
It really does.
What about you, Adam? What's your favorite travel stories?
I really enjoyed. I mean, like Justin was talking about. I mean, it's hard to go wrong anywhere near Moab, Utah. That whole region is it's so beautiful. I remember Justin when you, I, and Mark went on our 3-bike deal.
Oh yeah.
And just just the diversity of the terrain. Like we started in was it Sand Hollow, kind of the area where the sand dunes
St.
are
George.
and stuff.
Yep.
St. George, I'm sorry. Began in St. George, where it's crazy desert like sand dunes, and there's even a lake there. It's really beautiful. And then we meandered north and into the mountains, where now the desert landscape goes away, and now it's replaced by mountain landscape with trees and ponds, and we're climbing, so it gets a little cool. And that Duck Creek area is it's kind of uninhabited. There's not a lot of people there, so it's just, you're in the middle of nowhere, and it's just the diversity of terrain on that trip was awesome. And being able to try all 3 of those really nice adventure touring bikes is just, I mean, that's why going somewhere, it's fun to use motorcycles as commuters and tools, but when you actually have a destination, you want to get somewhere, it's really fun to go by bike, just because you get to see so many things. And we kind of had that route plan, but like Bradley had mentioned, we could have zigzagged and gone anywhere we wanted. That's the beauty of the bikes. You're not limited.
We did have some zigging and zagging, and one very, very late night. Very late night.
Yeah. That was wild.
Our staff photographer, Jeff Allen, completely wiped out on an Africa Twin. With like 50 pounds of camera equipment on his back. There was this corner. It was a really weird corner. It was kind of over a rise. It was off camber in the dirt. And
ditch,
it had like,
remember the ditch?
Yeah.
It had right of it.
It looked really like a really wide corner. Like it looked like the width of the whole road we've been riding on. But then suddenly it went down to like a lane and a half wide. And there was just gigantic like rain rut ditch full of rocks. And I think I was first. I went through there and I was like, oh, watch the corner. We had headsets on, and Adam made the corner. He was like, oh, that was tight. Well, Jeff's headset had run out of battery, and he came around that corner and just clobbered a rock the size of a Volkswagen and flipped over the bars. And yeah, it was gnarly. He took a helicopter ride.
That's for our tips when we get into our travel tips later. It's make sure you ride at a speed where you're getting there. You're getting to your destination.
Yeah.
It's one of the big things I've learned over the years too.
Yeah. He ended up being all right. He had a fractured vertebrae in his back, but he showed up at our condo later that night. He took an Uber from the hospital on his own instead of like calling us to come get him. And all of a sudden the front door opens at like 2:00 in the morning, and here comes in Jeff in like a paper t-shirt, like a hospital gown with his clothes in a paper bag, and he's like, oh, I'm back. And we're like, you're crazy, dude.
He walked out of there. I think he just left, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
he just left. He's like, oh, I'm just gonna leave.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm good. I'm out. It's not life threatening. So what about you, Bradley? Hopefully no crash bikes.
No crash bikes. Although I feel like I'm copying you guys now, because my favorite story is adventure bikes up through basically through Vegas, up into St. George, cutting over to Zion, and then through Duck Creek,
You gotta be
which was
kidding
my
me.
first time. No, I swear, through Duck Creek. The only difference is that, well, there's more to the story, but yeah, the route, the bikes, all of that's basically the same. So it's kind of funny. It says a lot about us. But
This
yeah,
this episode brought to you by the state of Utah.
yeah, exactly. Um, and then yeah, we cut over through the Grand Canyon and then down through, I think it's like Williams, Arizona, and then all the way back. So big loop, like that on adventure bikes. But the reason it's my favorite is because I did it with my dad and grandpa.
Super rad.
And I mean, I get chills just talking about it and thinking about it. It's still some of the best memories I've ever had. I think if you ever have a chance to do something like that, if you're fortunate to have a motorcycling family and it's like we said earlier about when you're traveling, you stop off at these little cafes and these diners or these random little hotels and you're doing that with your family. And so it's these shared experiences that you almost just don't get anywhere else. So, I mean, obviously I was really close, grew up really close to my dad and grandpa, but having those experiences together, you just feel like you understand them so much more and you make a bond that you almost just, you can't not on doing anything else. Right. That
Mhm.
when you're sharing that passion together and all these new experiences, it was each of us, it was our first time going through Zion. So you're just taking it all in together. Yeah, just such an incredible experience. It was my first time to the Grand Canyon. So getting to experience that together, my dad and grandpa had obviously been there together but getting to, experience it through me for the first time. And then, yeah, all the trials and tribulations, like we didn't have, we had plans for the first night, but like the second night, we didn't really know exactly what direction, or the second, I guess it was the third day at that point. We didn't know exactly what direction we were heading. So we didn't have hotel rooms and cruise through, Lake Powell area. And like, oh, we don't have a hotel. And we're just like riding around because I didn't realize there's not a lot of hotels in that area. Right.
No.
And so, yeah, we're riding around for a couple hours and the best we can manage is like some little Motel 6, and it's just like, you're just doing these things together and you're problem solving together and you're kind of enjoying the chaos of it. And for sure, I will absolutely never forget that, and like I said, just getting to the time that you spend, and we're all in headsets, right? So, you're kind of talking as you're riding and man, just absolutely one of the best weeks of my life for sure, getting to do that. So
The headsets
adventure
are a game
bikes,
changer.
that's,
Yeah.
for traveling, especially. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so funny because I always thought like when especially you've got a long day on the bike or something, like I really don't want to sit and have someone in my ear for that long, but when you're out there, it really does make a difference. And it helps the time just fly by.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I guess adventure bikes in Utah, if you can do it, I guess that's our
Yeah,
big
I mean,
takeaway
there's
here.
a common thread there that we didn't even, we didn't plan that. Yeah, Utah in that area is heaven for motorcycling, and if you haven't been there you go. There's your next
Yep,
trip. You should
yep,
go.
yep, exactly. What about the bad? Because we've all had we've got probably just as many
Oh,
bad
yeah.
travel stories as we have good, I'm sure.
My bad is actually still one of my favorites. So, so it was probably 2019, I think. And is when the Husqvarna Svartpilen 701 came out, and so there was a press launch in Lisbon, Portugal. So went to Lisbon, did the press launch, and at that time it was Chris Cantle was the editor of Motorcyclist, and he was there on the trip too. And we had this screwy idea to do a story for Motorcyclist as well afterwards. Like, hey, let's take those bikes and see if we can get them and ride to Morocco and ride around Morocco for a couple days, and then we had a tire test in Spain at Jerez after that trip. So we were like, then we'll ride back up to Seville, Spain. We'll drop them off, and then we'll go to the tire test. Like, oh, this
And
is cool.
then and
And
then
then, yeah,
yeah.
we just kept like adding on to the days and the miles, and then so okay, cool. So we get the bikes, and the weather was beautiful the whole time we were at the press launch. The morning we get up and it's freezing in Lisbon. I mean, freezing. And we're packed for warm Portugal, Spanish weather, and Morocco. So we're not like, I had an arrow stitch, but I didn't bring like a lot of underlayers. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll grit it out in the morning, and we take off, and I'm freezing and the sun's coming up, and we're heading onto this toll road, and we're going, and the light is green above the toll booth. And my brain was so frozen that I thought green meant go, not that it is open for you to pay your toll. And I'm going, and the gate, the bar, had perfectly aligned with the horizon. So it looked like the gate was open. And I just was like, 70 miles an hour straight at this gate. And the last minute I was like, oh my God, the gate is closed. And there's no way I'm stopping. And so I like kind of hack the thing to the right. And so it's like, and I'm like, I'm going to try to squeeze between the barrier and the bar. And I hit the bar with like my chest. The thing flies open like I'm the Kool-Aid man coming through a wall, you know, and all I hear is Chris Cantle screaming, oh my God, like in terror as I'm doing it. And then in the headset, and then going, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. So that's how we started the trip, you know. So I don't get a ticket because I've already blown through. He gets his ticket, and we take off down the road, and then it was great, except for super tiny tanks like Bradley had talked about. We stopped for gas, it seemed like less than every hour. Like, and we had miles and miles and miles and miles to cover to get to Morocco in one day from Portugal. And we stopped for gas, and we stopped for gas. And then we discovered how uncomfortable the bikes were for long distances. You know, they got this like little scrambler supermoto seat, no wind protection. And like, there was a point where I like unzipped the legs of my arrow stitch so they became like a wingsuit. And I hung my legs off the back of the bike at like 80, and the wind would hold my legs up. And then I was just laying on the tank because it was so
Whatever you could do to
uncomfortable.
be comfortable,
Whatever we could do to be
well,
comfortable.
not comfortable, but like 2% more comfortable than you were.
Yeah, you know, and so anyway, we get to the ferry, and we were hoping to get one before the sun went down, and we ended up getting one just before, as the sun was setting. We were on the ferry, so we took off, and the weather is terrible, and the seas are high, and I got seasick. And so I was good on the boat. I was watching the horizon all the time, and MotoGP was on the TV in the ferry. And so Cantle's watching MotoGP. He's like, Dawes, look. And I'm like, nope, just keep looking out the window.
Not
Keep
happening.
looking out the window. Keep looking out the window. The minute we rolled in the harbor, motion stopped. I'm like, oh, I made it without getting sick. I stood up, instantly sick. So I got sick, and then we had to ride in the rain to our hotel. So we go through that, and then we had 2 great days in Morocco, 2 or 3 great days in Morocco. We went to Chefchaouen, which is like this city that everything is painted blue. It's super picturesque. The people were awesome. We had a good time. We ate really good food. But while we were in Morocco, Cantle got a cold from riding in the rain, and he coughed into the headset every 90 seconds.
When headsets go wrong.
For 3 days, I heard, we'd ride in, and I hear every 90 seconds, and it didn't stop for 3 days. And so, like I said, headsets are cool until they're not, and that was when they were not. And then on the way home, we went to Spain, and I got food poisoning on the last day leaving Morocco, and then we went to the tire test, and I spent more time in the restroom at the tire test than I did on bikes.
So this is one of those trips where you're just happy to be home. When it's
happy
you're
to
just
be
when
home.
it's done, you're just like, yep, I'm glad that's over with. I don't want to do that again.
But even so, there was just so many amazing stories from it. So even when it sucked, and it really sucked at the time, like, it was like, why did we choose to do this? Like, you know, we're freezing, we got no wind protection, we're uncomfortable, we got sick, both of us got sick. Like, there were so many things that went wrong, but still, I think I might do it again. Different bike though, but I would do it again. What about you, Adam? Give us some bad news.
After hearing that story again, my gosh, I don't think my roughing it story is even that. I was having a good time, I think, now. Yeah, well, I guess we do have some similarities. Again, cold and wet. My story is maybe from 2000, probably 2 years ago. So actually 3 years ago from right around now. Ducati North America was having their official press introduction in SoCal for their 2022 Multistrada V4 Pikes Peak. So that's when the Pikes Peak was returning in V4 configuration to North America. So they had their press introduction, in Palm Springs, at a swanky place. Everything was going good.
Sunny, beautiful Palm Springs.
Yep. Sunny, beautiful Palm Springs. We were going to do our usual, Idlewild run. And for the folks that don't know, in Southern California, when the motorcycle manufacturers have their official press events, a lot of times they take place in Palm Springs. And we do a very, very familiar loop, through the mountains of Idlewild. And we do this all the time. It's really fun and usually an enjoyable experience.
It's a beautiful ride. Well, it really is. It's got a great road going up to Idlewild, and it's a really pretty ride.
It sure is. And then, there's like little off-road loops that you can tackle if, the vehicle is capable of that. So there's a lot of, diversity out there. It's a good place to do stuff, and we're really lucky to have this road in SoCal. Anyways, so the time frame is, December 2021. And in this time of year in Southern California, we're in our winter rainy season. So it's not uncommon to have, a rainstorm this time of year. Well, it just so happened that this particular day, we were going to have the storm of the decade. So, an atmospheric river was rolling through SoCal, bringing a lot of moisture and bad weather from, presumably the Pacific Northwest. And this was going to occur during our ride. So, we are all wearing, rain clothes and rain gear, which is a good topic for another episode. If you don't have the right gear, you're not doing it right. But we had the right, Revit full rain gear. I knew it was going to rain. As soon as we leave the hotel, we start climbing the 74 grade. And, within a matter of minutes, it starts raining, within minutes. So it's raining and, it's 9 a.m. and raining. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a long day. And we just keep trucking up the 74 and, the weather is just getting progressively worse and worse and worse. And as you climb this grade, while it's relatively nice at the bottom, 60, 65 degrees, in very short order, you're at elevation, 5,000, 6,000 feet, and it's not warm at all. Now it's cold, now it's sleeting. So we're riding and, it's cold and it's sleeting, but we're not on a particularly crazy curvy stretch of road. I mean, there's definitely curves, but it's not crazy yet. So we keep climbing the road. The temperature keeps getting cold. And, there's a point where I'm like, we should probably turn back or go somewhere else. Like the weather is just going to decrease. We're only going to go higher in elevation. It's only going to rain more. I mean, keep in mind, this was a day where the National Weather Service had issued like stay at home, don't go crazy because it's
don't go anywhere.
Not the day for riding a motorcycle.
Yeah. Yes. So, heated grips are on, I'm just like, God, when are we going to go back? The visibility's starting to get kind of poor. And, I just keep following the ride lead who happened to be, Formula Extreme champ, Jake Zemke. So we keep climbing and now we're in Idlewild. We're in the mountains and now it's raining cats and dogs and it's raining so much and the temperature's so cold that the Multistrada V4, in typical Volkswagen Audi fashion, it has a light. So when it's 32 degrees, this light flashes to let you know that there might be ice on the road. And now the light's flashing. It's flashing. It's 32 degrees. It's literally sleeting. We're on the side of the mountain where literally small boulders are falling onto the road surface. And, I have a pin lock insert inside my Shoei or Arai helmet. I can't recall what helmet I was wearing, but it was a Shoei or Arai. And usually pin lock, is a game changer, completely mitigating fog and condensation on the inside of the visor. Well, it was raining so hard that the pin lock was rendered useless. So,
oh my God.
Now we're going maybe 20 miles per hour, and I'm just literally following the faint light of a tail light that's within 6 feet in front of me, but it's still very faint. And it's raining, it's freezing, there's boulders falling down, we're going 20 miles per hour, and we still have we can't turn around. At this point, we're in the middle of the ride. So, there's no turning around. Let's just plow through this stuff. And, we finished the ride. It was, no one crashed, thank God. As we went down the mountain, the sleet turned back into rain. But by the time that ride was done, even though I had full waterproof gear on, I was soaked head to toe. Like, there was not an inch of my body that wasn't soaked. And
Yeah, it's crazy.
that's a story of when motorcycling goes sour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you're okay being in a car at that point, you're like, yeah, okay, throw the
Yeah,
heater
exactly.
on, and yeah.
Yeah. But in true Pikes Peak fashion, the Ducati Pikes Peak lived up to its name in crazy weather and still hauled butt and was a cool motorcycle.
That's cool. Bradley, what
You
about
guys
you,
set
dude?
me up by
Like,
being the last one here, because
it
now
better be good.
again, it's no, I'm copying
Better
again,
be
because
good.
although I was laughing because it also included naked bikes and bad weather. So this is, yeah, again, common themes. We get good is, beautiful scenery and adventure bikes. Bad is trying to go long distance on naked bikes in any time during winter.
Mhm.
um yeah, it was back in the day. I can't remember what year this was, but we were doing, so this is when I was at Sport Rider magazine. And in typical magazine fashion, you've got deadlines, and so you're like, we've got to get this test done. We need this done for this issue. So we had naked bikes, and it was December or January. We had a Triumph Street Triple, we had a Ducati Street Fighter, and an MV Agusta Brutale. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I decided to plan this trip. I was like, oh, we'll do this ride up to Central California, go up to Morro Bay. I like to, if I'm planning a trip, it's like, what's a destination I've never really been, somewhere that sounds cool. I would just love to see, right? We'll ride up to Morro Bay. Yeah, riding naked bikes in the middle of winter up, long distance stuff. You're just like,
Right next to the
what
ocean. Yeah,
was I
good move.
thinking, Yeah. So we're going up, over the Cone Pass, and it starts snowing on us. And it starts snowing so badly that, and mind you, I think you guys have all ridden through that stretch. There's nowhere to just get off, right? Once you are on the freeway right there, you are on the freeway.
Mhm.
So at least for a couple, miles at a time. And
Well,
I mean,
and
all of a sudden
that
it turns into,
that section of the freeway is just full of idiots too. Like, you don't want to be on the side of the road on that stretch of road.
no,
You'll get
right.
clobbered.
Right. So all of a sudden we're like, oh, we can get through this, and all of a sudden it's snowing, and then it's sticking to the ground, and it's just snow on the freeway. And so all we can do on the motorcycles is pull off to the slow lane and just go as slow as we possibly can to just keep the things upright. But now what's happening is all the big rigs and stuff that are going over there, they're all good. They're still going, 45, 50 miles per hour. So you've got these big things blowing by you while you're freezing cold trying to keep this motorcycle upright while riding on snowy roads. Absolutely one of the most terrifying experiences. So we ended up having to, once we kind of got over the hill, we were able to get off, get into a gas station, and we literally just huddled around the coffee machine there, just shaking, just everything, just to our bones. We're just shivering. And finally let that storm kind of start to roll through, so we can finish the ride up to Morro Bay. And it never got over like 40 degrees the rest of that ride, man.
Oh my god.
Just absolutely bone chilling cold for us, and wind chill factor and everything. And naked bikes, man. I will never plan a big trip naked bikes in winter again. Let that be the lesson. That was what I learned that time.
Well, I
It's
think
just like,
that one again. There's a common theme. Cold makes riding long distances difficult, right?
yes, yep. Plan accordingly when you're planning your trip as much as you can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. It's kind of crazy. This is a really good question. Like, have you guys ever done any, iron butt type rides where you've covered? I know Justin talked about doing his 6-day epic journey, but have you guys ever covered 1,000 miles in a span of 24 hours?
No, absolutely not. And I will never, ever, ever, hopefully ever have to do that. I understand, like, like the Iron Butt Challenge is this thing where, like, it's a rite of passage. Like people do it. They, they put their results up on the governing body of Iron Butt Challenge,
Iron Butt
right?
Association.
Yeah, Iron Butt Association. You got to have timestamp gas receipts. You got to, show where you started, where you finished. You got to have a witness, mileage confirmation, like all these documents to show that you did 1,000 miles in 24 hours. And like, I don't want to, how do I say this? I don't want to like poo-poo anybody's good time, but that is not fun. Like, what is the point of doing that? Like, I know like you've accomplished something, but it cannot be fun at all. And if it's not fun, why do it?
Yeah. Again, I think for me, at least, the joy of riding a motorcycle or traveling on a motorcycle is getting to experience all these places and taking the time to soak it all in and, absorb that and make those memories. And when you're doing something like an Iron Butt, in my opinion, you're getting through it as fast as you can. I don't know. That's
Well, and I mean,
not what I'm
it
looking
is
to do.
difficult to do 1,000 miles in 24 hours. Like riding 1,000 miles in a day is very tough. And sure, okay, it's the suffer. Like I commend you for making it happen, but no, thank you, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I just
I
don't
will.
have the willpower for it.
Yeah, and I think it also, like, bikes are so good nowadays. You get on, a Goldwing or a, K16, something like that, right? And it's just like it does make it a little bit easier than it would have been back in the day, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I guess so. I
For
mean,
sure.
India had pitched an idea a while back of me and who was on staff at that time, Morgan Gales, doing 24 hours or something like that on I think it was when the Pursuit came out.
Yeah,
Maybe the Challenger. I don't remember. One of the big and amazingly big comfortable motorcycles. And they were like, "Oh, we want you to do this thing and you want to do it." And everyone was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "No, no,
yeah,
no." And
yeah,
thank goodness the stars did not align that we had to do it. I mean, if I had to, I would have done it and I would have hated every second of it, or at least the last 12 hours of it. So cool, but whatever,
yeah.
So, for me, it's a thumbs down. What about you, Adam? Thumbs down, thumbs up?
I've never done 1,000 miles in 24 hours. I've done close, like maybe 700 or something like that in 24 hours, but I haven't done that officially. And my sentiment echoes yours. Like I wouldn't. It just doesn't sound appealing to do the whole witness and the timestamps and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But not knocking the people who do that. But I mean, and as Bradley said, it's like the Foghat song, "Slow ride, take it easy." Like when you're riding to your destination, you kind of, I mean, you want to ride at a good pace, but it's okay to stop and have lunch at the diner and take some
Yeah,
photos.
exactly.
You're defeating the purpose if you're like, oh, we got to go 1,000 miles in 24 hours. Hurry up.
Yeah,
Right.
you're also turning it into real work at that point. And yeah, I
Mhm.
guess I appreciate, the challenge and challenging yourself and overcoming those hurdles and stuff. But I know my dad did it a couple years back, and he basically did it and was like, "Yeah, don't really have a desire to do that again." Just like, yeah, and I
I can
kind of
Yeah.
see if
echo
maybe
your sentiments.
if you were purchasing a motorcycle on the West Coast and going East Coast or vice versa, and you had to get back to your destination for your family or work or whatever, I could totally see an Iron Butt for that application. But aside from buying a new or used motorcycle, I think I would pass.
Nah, no
I
thanks.
guess this is a good time to prompt some listeners, though. Like, if people that have done it, what made you want to do it, and would you do it again? Right?
Mhm.
Kind of
Yeah, yeah.
curious, because obviously we're all on the one side of the fence, but
Yeah,
yeah, kind of
exactly.
curious what other people
And
think and against.
we're not we're not downplaying your accomplishment,
Yeah,
but it's
right.
not for
Right.
us.
It's just not.
It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah. It's not.
you know.
It's not the style of riding that we're
Yeah.
interested in.
Yeah. So let's talk about like how to make motorcycle travel easier or better. Let's just each of us maybe throw in like one thing that would help make it. I mean, the list is massive. We could do a whole
Yeah.
episode just on how to make motorcycle travel easier, but let's just talk like each of us give a tip on what you would do to make your long trip on a motorcycle better. Let's start with Adam.
Well, like you said, there's a lot of options out there and ideas, but I think the most important thing it would be just to make sure you select the right piece of riding gear. You want to check, what weather you're going to encounter during your ride, and most importantly, at the destination. And, there's a lot of great motorcycle riding gear out there that can fit basically any type of climate, whether it's 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer or 40 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter and raining. So really just picking that right gear is really the most important thing. And, any type of ride like this is going to be, what pops in my mind is touring gear or adventure touring gear.
Yep.
So like a Gore-Tex or a generic Gore-Tex one piece or two piece pantsuit. Those are always my favorite. I love the two piece pantsuit with the multiple liners inside, so you can take one liner out, put it back in. Tons of pockets, so you can put your charging cables in there. And then, some of the riding gear is so good where the inner liners they're so modular and even fashionable that you can wear it as like an outside jacket, like at night. Like they look cool.
Yeah.
So, I would think just investing in the appropriate riding gear for your intended rides, just the most important.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
With big vents, right? Where there's nothing better when you're hot and you're like, oh, I've got all these vents that I can now open up. When it starts to cool down again, the sun goes down and you just zip them right back up. That's huge. And then also when you've got, just make sure that it's comfortable gear. Don't buy gear right ahead of your trip and then, not wear it and try it and break it in. Right.
You got to break in your
The
stuff.
worst thing is getting into something and like all of a sudden you're a couple hundred miles in and it's chafing. Like sometimes you get those like pants that kind of just bind up behind your knees and just start chafing. And like there's torture.
All the sizing is a little bit different between all these brands too. So a medium in one piece of gear might be a large in the next. So you have to kind of just try it out and wear it for a little bit of time just to make sure it fits. Because it's not like your clothing at home where, if your clothing at home doesn't fit totally fine, it doesn't really matter. It's fine. Like you'll be fine. But when you're spending, a full day in the saddle, you want it to fit right.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
What about you, Justin? Favorite tip?
My favorite tip, I think, is be prepared to work on your bike and have your bike prepared to go on the trip. So maintenance is an important part of motorcycle travel. We've all done it where we've gone riding in a big group of people and there's always that guy that his bike is not ready to go. And before you even leave, like his bike's going to break. We're going to be working on his stuff or her stuff or their stuff, and I think, don't be that person. Like work on your bike before you go and work on it well before you're going to go. Like really, like if you're going to go on a long, 2-week-long trip, like the month before, start working on your bike, go through every nut and bolt, change the oil, check all the fluids, check your tires, check your brakes, check everything so that you minimize the chances of something going wrong, and then have the things you need for the most common things that are going to go wrong. You might get a flat tire, right? So have a plug kit. If you're adventure bike riding, you might have a chance where you fall down and you crack something that's holding some sort of fluid, right? So bring some JB weld. It's really small. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's easy to use. Zip ties, duct tape, baling wire, assortment of small tools like you don't have to be name brand nice tools. Like Motion Pro makes really, really nice like travel tools. They're like titanium and they're super light, but you can also just go on Amazon and buy like cheap tools as long as they fit and they don't fall apart super quickly. Like just assemble a little toolkit and always have that with you. And I think that's gonna, even if you don't need them, you have the peace of mind that you can handle most things that come your way.
Yeah, I always like that tip too of anything that you might have to do on the road, and you're bringing, your tools for that, your small set of tools. Do that.
Oh yeah,
that task with those tools. Don't use the tools that you have at home that aren't coming with you. Use the tools that are going to be with you. Change your tire, take your wheel off with the tools that are going in your toolkit, and make sure you're comfortable and that you've got exactly what you need. And that they do get the job done.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Okay, you're I guess that would be your second tip now. Give us your second tip, Bradley.
Uh, it's maybe a small thing compared to those things, but I think be very selective of who you're doing these trips with, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the people that you're with can really impact your experience.
Very
And I
much
mean,
so.
from everything from the people you've got different, again, people want to experience different things. You've got guys who don't want to touch a highway the entire ride, and you got guys who just want to be on the freeway. You've got people that want to sleep in and just knock out a couple, 200-300 miles every day. You got people that want to go 500-600 miles in a day, and
You got people that want to stay up all night and drink.
yeah, all of these things, and that really does dictate your experience. So for sure, and that kind of goes into the planning. Think about the route, think about who you're riding with, and it's not just we'll just get out there and do it. There is a lot of thought that goes into into
Very
traveling
much
on a
so.
motorcycle
Like
for sure.
if you don't want to go on a vacation with that person, you don't want to go on a long motorcycle ride with that person.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
If you're
yeah,
like, oh, like, if I was going to go to Hawaii, would I invite this person with me? And if you're like, nah, then you wouldn't invite them on a motorcycle ride either for a long
yeah.
trip.
Right. Yeah. And I guess the other thing too, gotta stay hydrated. Gotta
Yeah,
stay hydrated, just
for
for
sure.
mental clarity, energy. I mean, hydrated and obviously make sure you get enough calories in. But you gotta carry water with you. Have
Hmm.
water at all times because I mean
Even
it's
on
very
even
important on a
on
motorcycle.
cold, wet days, you still need to hydrate
Yeah,
no
yeah,
matter
just
what.
that mental
So,
clarity and just making sure you're being smooth, precise, all those things and attentive. Yeah, you got your attention, all that.
yep.
Yeah,
So
massive.
it's funny, like, I was wondering when we talked about this podcast, like, would the stories and the ideas and the thoughts be all over the place because we're very different people, but we've kind of all aligned and we've got some things that align. And for all three of us, one of them is motorcycle travel is rad. You should do it. Absolutely, right? You should go do the trip. Don't put it off. You have a motorcycle, you should do it. Pick a destination, find some epic roads, do some planning, and just, make it happen. You got to do it. It's worth it's worth it. Even when it's tough, you're still going to look back on most of them and go, it was still rad, you know? So,
Yeah,
um,
not don't do the whole maybe next year. Maybe at one point I'll do it. Just make
yeah,
it happen. Make it
just
happen.
do it, and embrace the good and the bad. It's almost always more good than it is bad. So just do it. Um, we're at the end of the show. So if we've missed anything, let us know your tips and tricks for having motorcycle travel. Give us some of your stories. Like, put them down in the comments. Like, tell us a story of when the best trip you had or the worst trip you had, or if your riding friend that their bike was a total piece of crap and you left them in Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
So,
Or
on
favorite
top,
rides, right? Because maybe
yeah,
someone else will
yeah,
jump in and be like,
dude,
see in the comments, like, oh, that sounds cool. I got to do that. Yeah,
yeah, and inspire other listeners to check something out. Obviously, we all think you should go to Utah, but there's other places in the United States that are just as epic. So put those down in the comments below too. And thank you again for your support. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we're gonna see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.